Welcome back to Where Do We Go From Here? I'm your host, Kimon Kotos, and I'm here with the Director of Public Safety here in the city of Muskegon, Chief Tony Kleibecker, beg your pardon. And Chief, we were talking about ways that your officers really kind of get to know and try to read the scene and try to embrace what's going on around them so that they can have a better approach and communicate with their other fellow officers how to solve some of these things and let the public know that they're there for them. Tell me a little bit about some of the ways that you're trying to redirect activity, like say, for example, Western Avenue, because as you mentioned during the summer, there's a lot of demands for private events. You know, a lot of them have drinking associated with them, but the city and you have a responsibility to make sure that the roads are safe and passable for everyone.
Correct. And obviously we've had a number of discussions with our city commission about the closing of Western primarily, and the demands upon that. And you know, we want to allow access, easy access throughout the city. Certainly on occasion, there have been no real issues with closing that other than we need to be cognizant of the businesses who are down there. There are businesses who are not necessarily retail businesses. So in other words, they need to have clients come and go on a weekday. So part of that is trying to strike that balance of, you know, how often do we allow a major downtown street to be closed for X number of days. Right. Weekends, generally not a big problem. Certainly when you start closing weekdays, again, you've got some professional businesses down there who have clients. It's not a retail thing. It's not where people coming to an event are going to go. It's a business and not a retail business, as I've said. So trying to strike that balance is what we strive for this last year. And I think what a lot of potential event promoters have seen is, oh, you'll close Western for this, and they've had pretty good success. You'll close Western Avenue for this, so we want to close Western Avenue for this, and we want to close Western Avenue for this. Well, first of all, again, that impacts travel throughout our community. It impacts potentially businesses down there, non-retail businesses. But also when you start talking about closing blocks, then you start talking about us having to assign more staff. You're enlarging that event area that we have to cover, which means we have to, in all likelihood, assign more staff. And so taking all that into account has been the recent discussions about the special events in the city, the special event process, and how often will the city allow for Western Avenue to be closed.
Well, there is a cost, you know, to the city, and people don't realize that there are liabilities that the city is responsible for. Right. When you have thousands of people gathered, I mean, this city is known for its, you know, parties in the park, bike time, the food festivals. There's a lot of things that make Muskegon highlighted in Western Michigan as a place to go. But at the same time, you're bringing in people from all around the region, and maybe all around the state or neighboring
Midwest,
states.
Actually.
Yeah. And so along with that, people bring their behavior.
They don't leave their behavior at home. I wish some of them would, but they don't.
But you know, this is something that I think that people who may not participate in these public events, they're concerned whether, you know, that spillover effect, whether, you know, in the parking lots or in the neighborhoods where people will trash there or fights will occur. So you have to be aware and present to make sure to reduce those.
Sure, and we've been very fortunate with the events we've had, because it really has been, from a crime or behavior perspective, not bad at all. But, you know, going back to talking about the special event process, what a lot of people may not realize is that there's hours and hours and hours of staff time, not just the police department, but other city departments involved in working out the details and preparing for those special events. And that's the behind the scenes, like so many things. It's what you do ahead of time and the amount of work you put in ahead of time that often determines the success of an event. And that certainly has been the case with ours. So there's a lot of work there, not just the actual event time, but we've got staff here, and I'll speak specifically for the police department. We've got a number of staff here, and my time as well at times, tied up planning this process, working out the kinks, dodging curve balls that event promoters may throw at us in trying to accomplish what they think is best for their event. So that is part of the drain and the strain as well, is trying to do everything else we're expected to do, but then having this special event process, you know, first and foremost during our warm weather months.
Well, it increases the demand on the officers for overtime, and as you had mentioned at least once before, you know, there's a point where people can only handle so much.
Right.
I don't know whether you ever have to bring in other officers from Norton Shores or the Heights or other neighboring areas to maintain that staff, but you can't rely on private security.
No, I mean, certainly we work hand in hand with the private security, but when all is said and done, we are responsible for the behavior or behaviors that don't go well at these events. So that's why we're there. And certainly we partner with private security companies and really has worked pretty well when we've done that. So that is one piece that we do expect to be in play for the larger events, as they will have private security there, but we work hand in hand with them, and that's worked pretty well for us.
Let me talk a little bit about another subject. You know, one of the things that we see happen is repeat offenders. We see, you know, you have to deal with people coming back into the community. You have to be aware of sexual predators, people who have repeatedly either been armed robbery or larceny or other types of things. Could you tell us a little bit about how you work with the State Department of Corrections or other community groups, whether they be community health or other agencies, to try and keep track of that? Because that must be a lot to handle instead of having to, once a crime is committed, trying to figure out whether somebody has a pattern. But are there ways that you have to keep track of people that are back into the community?
There really aren't. I mean, we get information from the Department of Corrections, and they've been great to work with. But like local agencies, the state's under the gun, and you're seeing more and more prisons closed, which means that more and more parolees are being returned to their communities. And for us, like many urban areas, it's been a large number. There have been efforts at a prisoner reentry initiative, and quite frankly, it's been tough for us to participate in that because of staffing levels. We'd like to be more proactive with it, but we don't have the staff to do that. We certainly, if we get a call, if probation parole needs some assistance, if a social service agency needs assistance, we certainly go and help them. I wish we could be more proactive with that. I think it would maybe benefit us, but we don't have the staff to do it. And we continue to see a steady influx of parolees return from the prisons, and it sounds like more in 2011.
Well, are there initiatives that you've undertaken to work with not just the community groups, but churches or other organizations to try and have some wraparound so that those people who are reentering the community have some way of following up and connecting, rather than, you know, because if people come back and they can't find a job, they may turn to crime just to try and make a living, and that's a risk that you have to face. That's
a reality we have to face, and we don't. I mean, we certainly, again, as I mentioned just a moment ago, if there's an agency that needs some assistance, or, you know, can you help us with this or help us with that on a case-by-case basis, we do, but we don't have the staff to really go out and work that as I think a lot of people would like to see it worked. It's a great idea. But if you talk to most agencies in this county, most law enforcement, we just don't have the staff to do that. So it's really catch as catch can with that. I think some individual successes, but overall, we've just got to manage the crime problem that comes with, and it does.
Well, do you get any requests, or do you have meetings with people who have business interests with the city? I mean, do you meet with the mayor and potential investors or people who are looking at setting up employment opportunities here in the city? Sure.
The city as a whole has a group that will meet when a new investor is interested in doing something, a development in the city. I sat down and met with the director of the Chamber of Commerce yesterday, meeting with the Community Foundation next week on some issues. So yeah, we do get out, and I do get out and talk with folks, because part of it is the perception of our area. People think of us as this crime-ridden, overrun with gangster type community. We really aren't. The recent spate of violence really is confined to two sections of two downtown neighborhoods. If you look on a map, and we've done that for some of our stakeholders, and just pencil in the area, and I say, look at the whole city. The whole city is not burning. The whole city is not tanking. It's two smaller areas. I think it's important to go out and meet with our stakeholders, because they in turn have to say, it's not that bad after all. You know, yeah, we have our issues, but every other urban area does. And we have to learn to manage those, to live with them, and to move forward. Life goes on. You don't like to see the shootings. You don't like to see the homicides. When it happens, let's not go into full-fledged panic and feel like everything is going down the tubes. It's not. It really is not. So I do go out, and some of our senior staff do go out and meet with stakeholders as often as we can to talk about those issues. And certainly we also keep the mayor and city commission informed as well.
Well, we'd like you to stay with us, and we'll be back for another segment with Chief Tony Kleibecker. And thank you for joining us on Where Do We Go From Here.